This railway project was given $33 billion to be completed by 2020. But now it's looking at a completion date of 2030 and a cost of $128 billion. How does something go so wrong? In 2010, the California High-Speed Rail Authority uploaded an ambitious visual render of their proposed railway that stretched across more than half of California. This was the California High-Speed Rail Project. In 2008, the people of California said yes to a $9 billion plan to make their first high-speed railway in the nation. The idea? Build an electric train speeding from Los Angeles to the Central Valley and then to San Francisco in just 2 hours and 40 minutes, going at a speedy 220 miles per hour. That is an insane reduction in travel time. According to Google Maps, this 400-mile trip would take you about 6 hours or more by car. So, not only will you not have to constantly drive for 6 hours straight, but you'll also be able to cut down the time by 3 or 4 hours. That's just phase 1. In phase 2, they want to stretch the network all the way to Sacramento and San Diego, covering a massive 800 miles with up to 24 stations. Doing some quick math, that's about 3.5 hours from one end to the other, assuming the train was constantly moving the entire time and never stopping. By car, going from San Diego to Sacramento with no breaks is an 8-hour-long trip. So this project sounds like an amazing addition to the quality of life for Californians. On paper, anyway. In practice, this project isn't going so smoothly. Back in April 2009, the US federal government chipped in with $8 billion up front and $1 billion each year for 5 years through the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act to get high-speed rail projects rolling in 10 major corridors. The company overseeing the whole project is the California High-Speed Rail Authority. When they got the green light, the plan was to finish the whole line by 2020, costing around $33 billion. Since then, over 12,000 union jobs have popped up in the 15 years since Californians gave the thumbs up to the first high-speed railway in the country. But despite all those years, not 1 mile of track is down, and the money seems to be running out according to those in charge. The groundbreaking moment for the California High-Speed Rail happened in Fresno back in January of 2015. Now, they're hoping the first 170-mile stretch in the Central Valley will be up and running by 2030. A whole 10 years later than they thought the whole thing would be done. Not only that, they estimate that it might cost between $88 billion and $128 billion to finish the whole system from LA to San Francisco. Inflation and higher construction costs are the big reasons for the sky-high price tag. They've already thrown in $9.8 billion, and the CEO, Brian Kelly, knew they had a money gap right from the start, but they went ahead early because building sooner meant it would be cheaper. Right now, the big question is, where's the money coming from? Up to now, a whopping 85% of the funding has come from California. But the major roadblock? They need federal support, and without it, the project is a no-go, says the Secretary of the California State Transportation Agency. The 2021 bipartisan infrastructure bill did set aside $66 billion for rail, but most of it is heading to Amtrak, with no special cash for California's high-speed rail. Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi, though, is feeling positive about federal funds. She thinks the infrastructure bill opens the door for federal support in California. It doesn't spell out the details, but it has categories, and the high-speed rail project fits right in. Pelosi also pointed out that President Biden is a big railroad supporter personally, officially, and politically. In early December of 2023, the Biden administration dropped the news that they're throwing in $3 billion to help build a piece of the railway. But Californians are rightfully skeptical. They're wondering if this is a boost for the economy or just more government wasteful spending. Fortunately, only more time will tell. We've mentioned the reductions in travel time and conveniences for the average person, but let's look at the bigger picture. The government had no choice but to upgrade transportation for California's growing population, but they had three options to choose from: beef up airports, build new roads, or introduce high-speed trains between cities. After a thorough study, the high-speed rail came out on top economically, environmentally, and socially. So, in 2000, the plan for the California high-speed train took off, making it the first high-speed train system in the US. After over a decade, voters gave it the green light in November of 2008 through Proposition 1A for the Safe, Reliable High-Speed Passenger Train Bond Act. Doubts about the state's highway and airline networks handling future growth led to the investigation questioning their capability. They found that while the extreme ends of the proposed route were well served, intermediate markets like Bakersfield and Fresno had less frequent and less competitively priced public transport. The study also found that a high-speed rail could not only reduce traffic accidents, but also cut down on congestion costs, estimated at around $20 billion annually. By 2030, the rail system aims to have saved a whopping 12.7 million barrels of oil each year, if it ends up being finished at all. Forecasts predict 117 million passengers annually by 2030, with a relatively low cost per mile traveled, just $55 for a one-way fare. People in the Los Angeles and San Francisco areas are well aware of the challenges their existing transport faces. Dense traffic makes commutes even riskier, and the earthquake-prone region sees the high-speed rail as a potentially safer alternative in case of a natural disaster. Supporters argue that without the high-speed line, California might need almost 3,000 miles of new highway, 60 new airline gates, and 5 additional runways due to the projected population growth. Despite funding challenges, there's been progress. In California's Central Valley, 119 miles are already under construction. The project celebrated its 10,000th construction worker in early 2023. Infrastructure design work is finished, and a significant 422 out of 500 miles have been environmentally cleared, which is a monumental task in California. Just the environmental clearance alone cost about $1.3 billion. Even before any steel was in the ground or cement poured. The reason this costs so much is because of the policies in place. Calls for reforming the National Environmental Policy Act to fast-track eco-friendly infrastructure projects are getting louder. However, one of the priciest parts of the California project is the tunneling section outside Los Angeles. To manage costs, they started construction in 2015 in the cheaper middle section of Fresno, California. Admittedly, the project stumbled at the beginning, rushing into construction before fully ready. Luckily, most of those bumps are behind them. Going forward, they're getting the sequencing and chronology right, and the CEO is confident about the project's future. Now, with a $3 billion federal grant, they're gearing up to design and procure 6 train sets, construct the Fresno station, acquire land for extensions to Merced and Bakersfield, and lay track for the initial operating segment. The authority's plan sets track work construction for 2024 and station construction for 2026, eyeing a 2028 completion for the Merced and Bakersfield extensions and the first train delivery. Over the next 2 years, stations will be finished and trains will undergo testing before the service kicks off in 2030. The entire line proposal includes 15 stops, with 5 in the greater Los Angeles area. David Ditch from the Heritage Foundation sees this as problematic. He suggests that adding numerous stops inflates the project's overall cost without any scenario where it would come close to paying for itself. So, is this project worth the cost? Mark Jaffe, a Cato Institute policy analysis, thinks not, stating that there's no honest scenario where it could be deemed worthwhile based on the numbers. If you like this content, check out another one of our videos on some of the world's most astonishing builds.